Hi, my name is Dylan Emerick-Brown, and I am an English teacher at Deltona High School here in Central Florida. I want to thank Sean Latham, Carol Keeleher, and the entire James Joyce Quarterly staff for everything that they're doing and affording me the opportunity of filling you all in on the next generation of Joyce scholars. So as an English teacher, I really take to heart the quote from Aeolus in Ulysses, "Learn a lot teaching others." To that end, I teach my students After the Race, The Dead, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, and even have a Ulysses reading group for 3/4 of the school year. In the latest issue of the James Joyce Quarterly, I even have an article on teaching the dead to high school students. On teachingjoyce.com, you can find all of my lessons and assessments, sample student work. There's student art. Looks better on the website, but here is an example inspired from A Portrait of the Artist. There are also some recordings of students performing excerpts from Finnegan's Wake, the more lyrical excerpts, and even the first paragraph of the Anna Livia Pluribel chapter. So there's a lot going on there. Also on Facebook, there's the Teaching Joyce discussion group. You can feel free to participate in and join. But I wanted to really show you what some of these students are doing during the school closures thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. So for the entire fourth quarter of the school year, the schools have been closed and we've been communicating pretty much just through email, sometimes through Microsoft Teams. And with that being said, students are still doing work on either the Ulysses reading group or even some of the short stories and analyzing them. For example, in an essay that a student wrote on Eveline, and these are 15 and 16-year-olds on their own from their homes, she wrote, "The one tangible thing that continued to matter most to Eveline was her memories. By leaving with a man she adored, Eveline would be giving up those dear memories of her life before everything changed. The motif of dust is used frequently throughout this story. According to the text, Joyce states, quote, the odor of dusty cretonne, the familiar objects she had dusted once a week for so many years. Dust is the accumulation of all things that are dead. Dust consists of dead skin cells, hair follicles, and even clothing fibers. This motif is used to further bring attention to how Eveline's old, joyful life is fading. Eveline believed that she was leaving her home, and that came with saying farewell to the life she missed." In the Ulysses reading group, even though the fourth quarter is completely from isolation, students are still working on some of their thesis papers, which they voluntarily chose to do. These are topics of their choosing that they're researching, writing, and editing, and I act pretty much just as a faculty advisor to 15 and 16-year-olds. It's been an amazing experience, and you can see some of those papers on teachingjoyce.com. 2 of those papers will actually be published in the forthcoming issue of Corpus, a scholarly journal published by the University of Santa Maria in Brazil. I'll also be creating a print publication of all of these student papers for the 13th James Joyce Italian Foundation Conference in 2021, held in Rome. But some excerpts from some of those student papers that were written completely in isolation. This one is by Jennifer Fuentes, entitled "A Portrait of the Author as a Young Man, the Reflections of James Joyce Socially and Economically in His Writing." Whereas Stephen Dedalus in A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man reflects James Joyce socially more than economically, Stephen Dedalus in Ulysses reflects James Joyce economically more than socially. In A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Stephen Dedalus is sent to Clongowes Wood College, a Jesuit school. Stephen finds himself becoming a victim of the rest of his peers' bullying. Stephen feels as if he didn't belong with the rest, no matter how much effort he put into making friends and fitting in. Stephen, like Joyce, felt the need to leave Ireland to find himself and pursue his writing career. Although Joyce does incorporate some of his childhood economics, Joyce focuses more on portraying Stephen's social status throughout A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. In Ulysses, Stephen Dedalus has returned to Ireland and is struggling economically as a new and aspiring writer. Stephen is trying to thrive. To Stephen, Ireland stifles creativity and inspiration. As Stephen, in A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, once said, "When the soul of man is born in this country, there are nets flung at it to hold it back from flight. You talk to me of nationality, language, religion. I shall try to fly by those nets." During the time Ulysses was being written, Joyce was living in Paris. Joyce incorporates his economic struggles as an aspiring writer in Ulysses and how that affected him economically. In another student paper, James Joyce's Aversion to and Use of Written Disclosure Therapy by Sarah Barrett, she writes, James Joyce had a recurring distaste for psychotherapy, caused by reasons unknown, and found himself rejecting it. Though against the thought of receiving psychotherapy himself, he had given the chance to his daughter and unknowingly invited alternative versions of therapy into his readers' lives. He might not have been aware of it during his lifetime, but Joyce had been participating in writing therapy, also known as expressive disclosure, expressive writing, and written disclosure therapy. Research done by Sol Mugera and John Holden, entitled Writing Therapy, a New Tool for General Practice, notes that, quote, one theory is that of emotional catharsis, whereby the mere act of disclosure, essentially getting it off your chest, is a powerful therapeutic agent in itself, and that writing may facilitate cognitive processing of traumatic memories, resulting in more adaptive, integrated representations about the writer themselves, their world, and others. To claim that Joyce releasing his innermost thoughts through his writing to tackle his anxieties and feelings of jealousy is not comparable to a low level of psychotherapy would be wrong. Many professionals recommend the use of writing to assist with the organization of their patients' thoughts. It helps to ground the patient and give them a sense of stability. According to the aforementioned study by Mugera and Holden, practicing writing therapy can, quote, reduce anxiety and depressive symptoms. Joyce is simply acting as the doctor and patient, going through his life experiences as an adult and assessing them to make sense of them all. So these are just some examples of the student work that's being produced while in isolation during these strange and troubling times. So feel free to go to teachingjoyce.com and explore more of the student work. Join the Facebook page, Teaching Joyce Discussion Group, and take solace in knowing that the next generation of Joyce scholars is coming up and they're doing a great job. I'm very proud of them. So thank you again for your time. I hope this has been enjoyable. Stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you all soon at some new Joyce conference in the near future.